Good afternoon, everyone. I know this is a little bit unexpected, but welcome to a brand new live stream interview with me, Bill Machi. This is not related exactly to Stay Tuned, but in the past I've spoken with authors, particularly Disney-related authors, and so today I am very excited to bring to you another awesome Disney author. And this particular individual happens to be the Nebraska state poet, which is an amazing accomplishment. And I think I wasn't even aware that every state had a state poet, but it's amazing that he's here with us today. And he's here to talk about a brand new book with Disney poetry as the theme. That's right, Disneyland, the parks, the rides, the food, all the ambiance that you are aware of and love, combined with poetry, which is something that I don't know if it's even been done before, but I'm very excited to learn more about it. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, you are free to toss those in the chat, whether you're watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitch right now. And if there is time, I will get to your questions and your comments. And I look forward to this conversation and your thoughts, as always. So without any more of me going on about what's about to happen, I'm just going to let it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Matt Mason. Hello, Matt. Welcome.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks, Bill.
It's great to have you. I'm very excited to learn more about your book, and I can tell you that typically I try to do a bit of digging and research before I interview people. I always do at least a little bit, but this was one of those situations where I actually wanted to keep myself somewhat ignorant so that I could truly learn on camera for the first time. So I can't wait. But we're gonna do like a deep dive, but we're gonna like sort of get our shovel partly in the ground and like work our way around, and then we'll start digging.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you. That analogy made a lot more sense in my head. So first of all, congrats on the book before we even go into anything behind the scenes. I say that just because I feel like for those of us who maybe don't do giant projects, I think any giant project being completed is just a miraculous achievement.
I can't argue with that. Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of making sure it gets done right.
It is. It's a lot of. I find the person who is doing the giant project, it's a lot of that person meticulously obsessing over details that probably nobody will ever notice.
Yeah.
In your case, I'm gonna say one word, and I want to see your visceral reaction to this one word. No, we did not plan this out ahead of time, folks watching at home. Kerning.
Kerning.
No? Oh man, that went better in my head.
Oh.
Do you not deal with kerning?
I don't. What is kerning?
Kerning is a term that refers to the space in between the letters in printed text.
Oh, okay. Nah, I just do the writing. Somebody else does the layout, thankfully.
Oh, okay. So you don't get obsessive about that stuff then?
Not as much. I mean, I get obsessed about spacing and how it looks on a page, but I mean, the thing is with way too many things, I deal with the action of it and probably don't know the language of a lot of it.
So you actually have what it sounds like is a more relaxed version of being an author, which is you just write the thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a little bit envious of that, but also the control freak in me would never allow me to do such a thing.
Now, I've been lucky, especially with this press, the Old Mill Press, up the book. They keep sending me versions of it, and it's like, this looks amazing. So, yeah.
Well, I've spoken to a couple other Disney authors who've worked with the Old Mill Press.
Okay.
Is the Old Mill Press like an exclusive Disney label, or do they just happen to publish a lot of their things?
I think they're mostly interested in Disney things, but they've got a few other things, and that's what got me to get in touch with them. Because in looking to get a book of Disneyland poetry published, I mean, obviously you go, oh, let's look at the Disney publishers. They don't want poetry. Oh, let's look at the poetry publishers. They don't want Disneyland. But I heard an interview about the Old Mill Press, went to their website, and it's all Disney books with a couple random, poetry books. And it's like, okay. So I got in touch with them, and they were really interested and looked at the book and found a home.
Well, that's awesome. And that's got to feel like you're charting some unknown territory in a sense, right? I mean, are there other Disney poetry books out there?
Not that I've encountered, other than maybe a rhymed Mickey Mouse kids book or something. There's not a lot there.
Does your poetry rhyme, Matt?
Occasionally, but most of it's free verse.
Okay, what is your? I'm gonna get real nerdy with this.
All right.
Because the poetry that I'm into has a very strict set of rules with iambic pentameter. Look,
Okay.
folks, I know a little bit of terminology. And I typically rhyme with anything that I ever write, but you're not a rhymer. So what drew you to that type of verse?
When I started writing poetry, it was all rhymed, it was all metered. That's what in my head poetry was supposed to be. And then ran into a few poets and saw what they did. There are folks like Galway Cannell, Sylvia Plath, who started out in rhyme and moved into free verse, and really seeing what they're able to do, I love. Because especially the English language, it's a terrible language for rhyming in. Some people do it naturally. You see Robert Frost or a lot of great rappers who can just rhyme beautifully and tie things together. And I find myself stuck with the most awful things because they don't want to rhyme.
So that begs the question: because I feel like when there's a rhyme scheme, I know if it works or doesn't because it has to follow a set of rules. I treat it like a game when I write poetry. If you're not doing that, how do you know that it works?
I think it's one of those internal things of, it's like, okay, this poem is right. You look at it, you read it out loud to yourself. It's like, yeah, that works. Like if you feel some energy from it, if it makes you actually recall what you were feeling when you wrote it, I think it works. But I do love rhyme poems for that though, because the box you're in. You know exactly what you have to fill, and that is a real advantage to it.
And disadvantage.
Yeah, that's true.
The advantage is the disadvantage.
Yeah, because in this book, I've got one poem I really love that's in villanelle form, but the last two lines don't work, and it's a really strict form. So it's just like, well, I'm just gonna break the rule. So.
Okay. Now, that's really interesting. So you're breaking the rule when convenient, I guess.
Yes, when it suits me.
Okay. When I darn well say so. So the title of this book is At the Corner of Fantasy and Maine, Disneyland, Midlife, and Churros.
Yes.
Now, I could infer all day long as to why you chose that title, but I'm not going to do that. I would like you to tell us, why is that the title of this book?
The title of the book is because that's just what it ended up all being about. I didn't start writing this book when I turned 49, but something happened on that birthday. I found myself thinking a lot about Disneyland and just it grew into a weird obsession over a couple months where, I'm looking up on YouTube the 1955 opening day telecast, and I'm reading articles and watching videos, and I'm downloading podcasts, and I'm doing all this research, and I don't know why. And then my wife is also a poet, and she tells me, she knows this is going on, though I'm trying to hide it. Like, she gets into the car, and I start the car, and it's some, random Disneyland podcast. I'm like, oh, turn the channel. And so she's finally like, you're doing all this research, you need to write. And I'm like, no, because it's just one of those projects that's like, this is just ludicrous. I should not be writing this book. I should not be writing poems about Disneyland. I should be writing poems about, politics or the wars, or ended up writing poems about Disneyland and loved it, and I'm so glad I did. So midlife plays in heavily, because through writing the book, I kind of came to figure out why I was suddenly so obsessed with Disneyland at this point in my life.
And what's the reason? What's the reason why?
It's really because Disneyland is it's like a touchstone place in my life. When I was a kid, my parents took me there when I was like 4 and 10. And then in college, I went there a couple times with friends. And then after my dad passed away in the 90s, and my mom passed away in 2014. And after she passed away, I took my family to Disneyland. And all these different important times of my life have this one geographic point in common. And I mean, Disneyland, of course, has got its own magic too, but it's kind of the tying together of all these different phases of my life in Disneyland.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah. And it's just kind of wild how it turned out to be such an important place for me existentially. And so I don't understand why the midlife crisis kind of thing, why that happens and when it happens, but it was a lot of fun to work on.
Well, churros is also in the title. How many of those do you consume per trip? Be honest.
Roughly 2 per day. So
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've eaten a few.
All right, that's a respectable number, I think.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure you don't give yourself too much of a sugar high.
Well, it's tough. I'm diabetic too, so I gotta be careful.
Well, that's horribly inconvenient.
Actually, it's not, because what happens is when I'm in Disneyland, my daily routine is so messed up because I'm walking so much more that my blood sugar sometimes starts going down, and I need something to bring up the blood sugar. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah. And there's always a churro stand within sight. So,
yeah, that's by design, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, you walk in, you got your churro in hand.
Yep.
Everybody that's with you says, Matt, you're in charge today. What's the first ride you go on?
Space Mountain.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, there's a lot of great rides. There's a lot of great attractions. I love them all, but Space Mountain that's the one. So, especially with the surf guitar soundtrack. So
the what?
When it's got the surf guitar soundtrack, when it's not one of the variations,
yeah,
which are all good too. But man, it's awesome.
You can't go wrong with the classic soundtrack to Space Mountain.
No.
Was it like was it love at first ride when you first went on Space Mountain?
I gotta believe it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember riding it in, I think, the 90s when I was there with some friends, kind of a random adventure. And it was one of those magic nights where in the 90s, the park's not as crowded. And I think it was right after fireworks. Most people were headed for the exits, and no one was headed to Space Mountain. So you could ride it, run out the door, run back through the line, and hop right back on. So,
I mean, that's like so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
I've also been in that situation, and there is something almost like you feel like you're getting away with something.
It is, yeah. So actually, one of the poems in the book is just about that. So.
Oh, great. My mom lost a hair clip on Space Mountain. I was waiting until you took a drink of water to tell you that. That happened in the 90s. I think it was early 90s. I really wanted to go on. I think I wasn't tall enough without an adult or something like that. And she went with me and lost a hair clip. And we've talked about it ever since.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Remember hair clips, everybody? All right. Okay, so then obviously the nostalgia aspect is a big part of this. What was your burgeoning research period?
Yes.
What do you think is so special beyond the touchstone moment you mentioned and beyond the nostalgia? Do you think there's something else going on, the magic aspect? You think you can tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's something really special about Disneyland. You hear all the stories about the cast members who, are really obsessive about wanting to work there and what they put into their job and how much they enjoy it. I mean, there's something special about it being the place that Walt built and where he walked and all that. It's got a certain amount of American nostalgia, but it's got something a little bit different too. Just that extra bit of magic. So.
When you think about countries being known for things, and obviously this country is still relatively young by comparison.
Yeah.
Our major export is entertainment, in my opinion. Yeah. So I agree with you. You can't get much more American than Disney.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So the book comes out on April 5th.
Yes. It should.
Sorry. I should have said the book comes out on April 5th.
It does. It's one of those things where so Old Mill Press, they don't, like a lot of my poetry publishers do print on demand. So you order a book, it gets printed and sent to you. These folks, they do coffee table books. They do beautiful books, and so they get printed in Korea. So my books are either on a boat or soon to be on a boat. So they may be a little bit delayed, but you can pre-order. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of a mock-up. This is the galley copy. It's not real, but it's got the cover.
Well, the first word is fantasy, so I don't think being told that whether or not it's real is relative.
Good point.
The oldmillpress.com is where people can go.
Yeah. Pre-order now.
You're on the front page, by the way.
Yes.
So I don't even have to give anybody a specific link. They literally can go to the oldmillpress.com, and on the main page, your book is right there, which has got to be pretty exciting.
It is. It's really great to see. They've been fantastic supporters of this very strange project, so I'm grateful to them.
So did you have an editor?
No, it was just me, and they gave it a look over, but there wasn't a formal edit for the book, so hopefully I got it right.
And you're right. So if there's any typos, we know who to talk to.
I mean, I did kind of obsess over it for a few years, so it should be pretty solid.
Okay. Except your name on the front. No, I'm kidding. So when you pitched this to them, what was that like? How do you even broach the subject of, I have an idea for a book of poetry about Disneyland?
Yeah, it is a weird thing, because again, it's a book project that I almost didn't start because I thought it was such a ridiculous idea.
Do you still think it's a ridiculous idea?
Yeah, I still do. It is, but it was a fun, ridiculous idea that I'm glad I did. Okay. But yeah, because I submitted it. I tried getting in touch with folks involved with Disney publishing and all that, and nothing, no responses. Sent it to a few poetry publishers, no responses. So, but having something about seeing what Old Mill Press publishes, I really felt that if anybody's going to be interested in this book, they would. And so I felt weirdly confident with such a strange book project. And so just wrote up a note, and they responded pretty quickly that they were interested in looking at it. So that was a real good sign. And I think from the first bat, they seemed to love it. So I lucked out.
You didn't need permission from Disney themselves?
No, it's they've worked that out. Obviously, they publish a lot of Disney material.
Okay.
Though they're not a Disney company. So I asked them about that, and they, I think you can write about the subject. I can't say it is a Disney thing, but you can have Disneyland in the title because that's where most of it happens. So.
There you go. Is there a Haunted Mansion puzzle? Is there a Haunted Mansion poem?
There is.
What's the title of it?
Let me find that. Hold on.
It's my favorite ride, by the way.
Ooh, it's a good one. That is, if it's not Space Mountain, that might be one of them. That's at the top of my list too.
My other favorite, because obviously this is it's true, but it's also the obligatory response, is Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's a solid one. That's always a solid one.
Yeah. You don't have to do this if you're not prepared to, but I would love a Haunted Mansion recitation.
You got it. Yes. So the poem is called "The Dead Rewrite the Script," and it starts with a quote from the end of the Ghost host's Haunted Mansion spiel, where he says, "Now I will raise the safety bar, and a ghost will follow you home." So the dead rewrite the script. But the ghost won't. And that's not science, where you can dismiss the paranormal as a Pepper's ghost who pops if the light bulb does. Electric spirits spun in the same story every minute of the park hour. This is about grim, grinning ghosts come out to socialize. And halfway on the walk to the Hyatt, their eyes will be rolling far enough back to see out their top hats. These creepy creeps dig a swinging wake. And all you're up to is staring into a little screen, talking about some sports thing or writing a poem. Grim, grinning ghosts don't come out for this. And until further notice, if you don't start behaving with a little more liveliness, they won't be caught dead with the likes of you.
Wow, that was really great, actually. I really love that.
Thank you.
It caught me off guard. I didn't know what to expect. I was like, I don't know what this is going to be. So that was delightfully pleasant. And you had a little bit of like social commentary in there for good measure.
Yeah. Well, it's got that theme of the midlife and Disneyland. No churros in that one, but
no. Well, maybe someone died from eating too many churros. I don't know.
So I think with this whole project, I say it was a fun project to write, but I really aimed it not at academics. I don't know if this will ever be taught in a college classroom or submitted for awards, but I really think that Disney fans will enjoy it because I really worked on making this a fun, kind of a fun collection. So,
no, I mean, really, that sounded. It just you captured. Well, to coin a phrase, you captured the spirit of that ride. So,
I tried.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Do you feel like you have developed a voice for each poem? In other words, if someone were to want to do a reading, would you feel like, oh no, they're going to get this line wrong?
I don't. I really like hearing when other people read my poems out loud because they'll bring what they see in the poem out of it. And it's kind of cool. It's like I've had that happen where high school kids are using a poem or two of mine for a forensics program or a speech program, and hearing them do it, it's like, oh, that's different than I would, but that's a really good way to deliver that line. So
that's awesome. And I understand you organize poetry events, right?
I do. I ran a poetry slam for about 12 years. And then for the last 10 years, I've been running a youth poetry festival with students from about 40 Nebraska and Iowa high schools competing using poems.
How do you determine a winner of a competition of poetry?
It's totally ludicrous. I mean, making poetry a competition is obviously a gimmick to make it more exciting. So there are judges in the audience, kind of some of them chosen from the people who come who aren't affiliated with a team, and some of them are, just locals who we talk to come and judge a poetry event. And they hold up a scorecard after each poem, and somebody wins at the end. And judged by random yahoos means the best poem may not get the highest score, but it means everybody's going to deliver their poems with a lot more energy, and it just makes for a lot more fun. So,
which means there are no losers. We all got to have some great poetry read and enjoyed.
Exactly, because I think the hardest part about poetry, as it kind of has been over the last 100 years, is poets put a lot into writing the poem and then don't know how to deliver it. And so with something like that, we're working with kids to teach them not just how to write poems, but how to deliver it so that the audience will respond to it and think it's, see what the poet put into the poem.
Do you feel like there's maybe a follow-up to this book? I know it's really early because this book isn't even out yet, but I mean, do you feel like there's a Disney World poetry book in your head?
There could be. The thing, I've never been to Disney World, so
what?
I've been to Disneyland a lot. I've been to Disneyland Paris twice, but never
wow.
been to the world. So there is obviously a book there, and I think Disney should pay to send me there to write a book.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, it is a fine idea. So
I need to have a disclaimer at the bottom, like the opinions expressed therein do not reflect necessarily the thoughts and feelings of Phil Machi or anyway. No, I think that their 50th anniversary is right now, I believe.
Yeah, I think it started last fall.
So yeah, I think if there was a time for you to go to Disney World, it's now.
Exactly.
And you talked about the number 50 as far as midlife goes, and Disney World's turning 50. I kind of think like that's your sign.
Yeah, it should be. But yeah, the thing is, this book was so much fun to work on. I would love to. It's just a matter of getting there, which, I run a nonprofit and I'm a poet, so
right.
I'm just rolling in money, clearly.
Yeah. So everyone needs to buy a copy of this book.
Yes, buy a couple. They make great, what's next? May Day presents. Oh, Easter presents. There you go. Either one.
I was going to say, please don't say books, doorstops. You're buying a couple. Just take your kid to a restaurant, and instead of a booster seat, just put a bunch of these books underneath. And no, I'm kidding.
As long as you buy them, I'm good. So.
There you go. So you're the Omaha State poet.
Nebraska State poet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Yes, Nebraska. But Omaha has nothing to. Well, it's not related to that. I mean, it's obviously in Nebraska, but I mean, they don't determine. Not one city determines it, right?
No,
okay.
It's for the whole state.
For the whole state of Nebraska, which is very cool. What does one have to do to become a state poet?
It's kind of a lifetime achievement award. So I've done a lot of work traveling around the state for things like the Nebraska Arts Council or Humanities Nebraska or different organizations, mostly working in schools, getting kids interested in poetry, having them write poetry, doing my own readings. So it's just kind of having done that and run events around the area for years. And then every 5 years, there's a new state poet, and my name was thrown into the hat, and they liked me, so here I am.
That's great. And how long have you been involved with poetry in general?
Oh man, since since the 90s. I mean, I was writing in high school in the 80s, but we will not talk about those poems because I was in high school and it was the 80s.
Well, I happen to have here with me.
No,
I don't have it.
no, there's a lot of poems that I still have, but they will never be seen by other human beings. Some poems like that.
Oh.
Yeah. They're good time capsules for me, but I do not want anyone else to ever see them. Poorly written, all that. But, yeah.
Mine were all about girls.
Yeah, a fair amount. Mostly girls who didn't call me back. So.
I guess it wasn't all of them. Just some of them were about girls.
Sure.
Some of them were about bad dreams that I had to write into. Or, I don't know. I've got a few of those old high school poems. You're right. They're best kept secret.
Mostly.
So, yeah. Huh?
Yeah. Unless you have a lot of good guidance. Like, it's kind of fun to see the high school kids I work with. I mean, some of them are writing these absolutely beautiful poems, and I'm just sitting there going, man.
You wouldn't advise the high school students to keep those poems secret then? You wouldn't tell them?
No, some of them, no. I mean, I'm listening to some of these poets, and it's like, these poems should be published. I mean, these are beautiful. So, yeah, they're pretty talented.
Well, that's good.
Not.
Would you say that being a poet is a modern day incarnation of the bards? I know there's no music involved, but I kind of feel like the spirit of a poet is similar to a bard.
I think I kind of encourage people to believe that, because I think in reality I'm pretty ordinary. But give me supernatural skills, yes, I'm all for that.
Okay. What do you write about when
you really do run across some poets who really transcend? Poets like Amanda Gorman, who's out there reading at the presidential inauguration a year and a half ago. Just amazing, skilled, elegant, and all this. And I'm kind of an awkward old guy, reading funny poems sometimes.
That's not very nice. Yeah. That's not fair. We don't want to say things like that about you.
It's all right. I'm good with it. I say some good things.
Okay.
I'm all right with it.
Speaking of good things being said, you had some lovely reviews on the website about your book. Like, the comments being said by other individuals are really very flattering. I don't know if you like there was an Imagineer that wrote about it and everything.
Yeah, I really am humbled when I was sending these out. When I was sending the book out to a few people to look at and give me a blurb, I was really blown over. One comedian, Pat Hazel, that was the hardest because a lot of the poems are funny or trying to be funny. So you send something that you're trying to be funny into a comedian, he's not going to hold back if it's not. And
a Seinfeld writer at that.
Yeah.
So I imagine that would be nerve-wracking, sending a Seinfeld writer what we think passes for comedy.
A little bit. Yeah, and then the Imagineer, Greg Combs, it's also a lot of the poems are about attractions that he probably worked on here and there, and what's he going to think? And to get such a nice statement from him was like, those are the kinds of things where it's like, okay, I did do this right. So
do you think you're going, yes, I should say, if an Imagineer kind of gives you their blessing, yes, that's got to be incredibly validating.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to do anything isolating a singular poem on something outside of the book, if that makes sense? Like, I don't mean embroidered on
embroidered on a pillow.
Yeah, on a pillow.
Etsy.
But I mean something not too far out of line with that. Or you know how people will maybe they'll frame something, or they'll, I don't know. Are you planning anything like that?
I don't have any real plans for that, but I'm certainly open. I'm not. That's the hard part about being a poet these days is, poets, some have agents, most don't. I don't, and I'm not a marketer, so I figure things out as they come. I'm open to suggestions. If you own an Etsy shop and want to put a poem on a pillow, we can try it.
This is a great invitation for everybody watching right now.
Yeah.
How many books does this make for you?
This is my 4th.
Okay. What are the other books people can look forward to discovering from you about?
Well, my first one is called Things We Don't Know, and it's sort of a love story overall, but it's kind of a weird mishmash of poems over a bunch of years. And then my second book is called The Baby That Ate Cincinnati, and it's about fatherhood and horror movies, because the two are closely related when you have kids, especially under 3. A lot of beauty and a lot of horror. But that one was a blast to put together. And then my third book came out in November of 2020. The perfect time to release it.
How did that go over?
I wasn't able to do much then, but the past couple months I've done a lot of readings for that book around the state, and that's been good. So that's my book about Nebraska. It's called I Have a Poem the Size of the Moon. It's mostly about Nebraska and outer space, because why not?
I love your themes. They're very whimsical and somehow also relatable.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a book coming out in a little over a year that's mostly about 80s rock. So,
well, that's right up my alley for sure.
Watch for Rock Stars in July of 2023.
Is it done? Or are you still doing the every day you pour over the details?
No, it's pretty much done. It's a different press, this next one, and they're in the editing phase, so they just sent me a whole lot of questions. So.
Okay. You have to answer all those questions now.
Yeah, I have to approve or disprove, largely dealing with my use of commas, which I mostly follow the rules on, but sometimes thematic, it doesn't quite fit. So yeah, it gets complicated.
What's an English grammar rule that you absolutely abhor to use?
Man, I mean, I'm okay with the rules for the most part, but sometimes when dealing with free verse, I mean, that's the thing with if you've got rhymed and metered poems, it goes from syllable 1 to syllable 10, you're good. But with free verse, you can use line breaks and stanza breaks to punctuate, and I really do that maybe too much. So yeah.
So you see, I've seen people use poetry spacing pictorially.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that?
I do a little bit. Yeah. Every now and then I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's fun for the reader, and you can use it really to your advantage in how a person, if they were to read this poem out loud, you can help guide them the way it looks on the page.
Yeah, I think that's a creative tool that, let's say, a novel wouldn't have.
Yeah. Good point.
Do you have it in you to write an epic poem?
I don't know if I do. I mean, I have tried a few times.
Results were not as epic as you desired.
I think the closest I came was I I wrote a really long piece called My Big Fat Greek Tragedy.
Okay.
And it was horrifyingly awful, but a whole lot of fun. And it probably maxed out at about 8 pages. So, yeah.
Okay. Are you gonna ever like return to that, or is that?
Oh God, no! It's horrible.
No.
So,
Okay.
it makes me laugh, and I enjoy it, and I do love it. But no.
What's it like maybe something that's conceptual right now that you are working on that you're like, okay, I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but if I have my druthers.
I've got a collection of political poems actually that I've been working on. It's a mix of pandemic poems because I did a lot of writing, especially the first few months of the pandemic, and then just have a lot that's come out politically, but it's hard to get right, especially in such a contentious atmosphere, which I'm certainly not being polite with a book about politics. But
may I offer a title that you can choose to not use or use at your discretion?
Yes.
Poemdemic.
Could work. Could work.
I don't know what that would be for, but could be interesting.
You never know.
So once the book comes out, are you going to be doing some touring?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm kind of delaying scheduling it just to make sure, just because the delays with the shipping are a little unpredictable, so I don't have anything set yet. But once it's out, I plan to do a lot this fall. There's some, of course around Nebraska, but there's some folks in a few other states who are interested in talking about setting something up. So
let me tell you, there's a wonderful store here in Austin, Texas called Book People.
All right.
It is known as the country's largest independent bookseller.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So they do readings all the time. I highly recommend them.
All right.
Now, if someone wants to order your book but doesn't go through theoldmillpress.com, can they request it from their local booksellers?
Yep. Any bookseller you can order it through. And you can do it right now. You should be able to go into any bookstore and say, hey, I'd like to pre-order this book, and you can get it.
Hey, you know what we should have done before this conversation today? We should have talked to the Old Mill Press about getting some kind of a offer code if they watched this interview and then went and got the book immediately afterwards.
Well, if you watch this interview and go and get the book immediately afterward, you can get it an autographed copy. So.
Okay. Well, I don't think I agreed to assign anything. Oh, autographed by you.
Yes. Oh. Yes.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense, actually. Yeah.
That's
good.
If you want to sign it, we can figure out that too. But yeah.
Why would I sign a book I didn't have anything? I should just start signing things that I had nothing to do with. That'd be great.
There you go.
I'm gonna start with the hungry caterpillar or whatever it's called.
Oh, everybody's like Eric Carl and Phil. What?
Phil Machi? What? Why is he? He didn't do anything in this book, did he? I don't think so. But he signed it. He wouldn't sign it for no reason, would he? I don't know. Have you met the guy? He might.
Could happen.
Yeah. So what's next? Are you when you have your next day of writing, what's the project? Is it the 80s, or that's all done?
No, that one's all done. And I mean, this one was an unusual project for me because normally I make myself write a new poem every week. So I've got a deadline of Monday night. A new poem.
Can you edit? Are you allowed to edit it, or are you? Okay, so really, it could go longer than a week.
Yeah. It always does because I'm always editing for months.
Okay, good, because that's a lot of pressure to be like, once I'm done Monday night, you can't touch it anymore. That would be that'd be quite the exercise. That would be
that would lead to a lot of bad poems. So
yeah, right.
Yeah,
that would be anxiety inducing, I think.
It would. But no, so mostly I'm writing a weekly poem, and they're not related necessarily. So I don't usually do projects like this. This one just lends itself to the project. So mostly what I end up doing is writing a lot of poems and then gathering the ones that have some kind of common thread. And for whatever reason, like the 80s rock poem has poems written over, a probably 25-year stretch. So,
oh wow, are there specific bands covered in that book?
Yes, I mean you'll find Blondie, Prince, Bon Jovi, Flock of Seagulls.
I'm pretty sure you don't have my favorite band in there, though. I'm pretty confident you don't.
Who would that be?
Oingo Boingo.
Oh, I don't think there is. I thought there might.
I think you should write one, though.
There might be a Danny Elfman reference, but I can't. Oh, I'm not sure. I can't claim. Not sure.
Okay.
All
right. That's your homework assignment.
I don't want to go boingo poem. All right.
That's it. Do you ever imagine musical accompaniment underneath your poems, or is it more like spoken word? Someone standing on a stage, kind of getting their emotions out
with bongos.
With bongos and snapping fingers. Yes.
Oh God, no. I've had some folks want to put some of my poems to music and then never heard back from them. Because I think the problem is my poems are in the same rhythms I speak in, and I'll be listening at home. It's like, this guy is all over the place.
So Christopher Walken would not be the appropriate party to read your poetry.
Yeah. There's no steady rhythm. It's kind of a mess. So it's tough to put to music. Most of them are pretty tough to put to music, but I would love it but it would take a genius. So
to put it to music?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not getting back to you because you broke their brains.
That's possible. Could be.
It's quite the achievement. You should feel very proud of yourself.
I should. All right. I'll take it that way.
Do the other state poets, do you guys is it like a fraternity? Like, is there a state poet group text?
I thought there would be. I got named state poet in 2019, and I thought, oh, cool, because there's a lot of folks out there who are poets laureate or state poets and all that, and there's a little bit of contact, mostly through folks that I knew before, like the state poet of Iowa, Deborah Marquardt, or up in South Dakota, Christine Stewart Nunez, and and I've reached out to a few other state poets and brought them in for my nonprofit to do a reading or a writing workshop. But there's not a lot of contact, which is a shame.
It is a shame, actually. I was like, how sad is that?
There should be a party every year.
There should be something. Is there only one representative from every state?
Usually. I mean, sometimes there's some cities who have poets laureate, some counties that have poets laureate. So
do you retain is it like you get to have the title the rest of your life, or is it like, look, Matt, we don't think you're putting out good poetry anymore, so we're taking away your sash that we gave you and the bouquet, and we're giving it to some other person across the state?
It could happen. Hopefully not. I mean, that has happened in a few states where I think, I forget who it was, but a few, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, New Jersey got really angry at their poet laureate and took his title away from him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Is something about, God, I don't know. He must have said something wildly political. But Nebraska's pretty mellow. We're still kind of new to this form of the state poet. It's like most states have poets laureate. Nebraska has a state poet now because we had a guy named John Neihart who was named the poet laureate in 1922 and then was named it in perpetuity. So even though he's been dead for 50 years, he's still the Nebraska Poet Laureate. So after he passed away, they had to come up with a new title.
Oh, I see. So he's no longer that.
Yeah. Well, no, he's the Poet Laureate because he was named it in eternity. So
there's no more Poet Laureate being named. That's what they did. It's like having a state bird.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell the cardinal, I'm sorry, but we're just not into your red feathers anymore.
But it would have been kind of cool if they would have just named every official poet of Nebraska a new title in perpetuity. That way, in a few generations, they would just have the most ludicrous titles, and it would be glorious. So
that's a great idea. Although I also think it should be run like Miss America, where it's like Miss America 2019. You know what I mean? Like that would be kind of a nice way to maybe keep the title fresh, like to remind everybody, and you could win it multiple years. Let's just say that would be possible.
Sure.
But there would always be like a big announcement, a big ceremony. Otherwise, if you give the title once, you never mention it again, people don't think about it, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
What's the next event you're going to be running?
Well, I'm in the middle of the Louder Than a Bomb Great Plains Youth Poetry Festival. So it's with the students, high schools and middle schools competing with their poems. And that's going on for the next couple weeks.
Okay, so people who are watching this interview right now, who happen to be in
Nebraska, you can watch some of it online if you look up the Nebraska Writers Collective. That's my nonprofit, and we run the events, and you can watch them live streamed.
What is your nonprofit non-profiting from?
It's we work with schools and correctional facilities and communities teaching creative writing and performance and community building. So,
well, that's a really worthwhile organization.
It's fun. It's really been amazing, and we do great work, and it's fantastic to see kind of what poetry brings out in people. So
that is awesome. I have to take a brief moment to let those of you who are watching live right now know that we are close to the end of this broadcast, but there are a few minutes remaining. If you have any questions for Matt that you'd like me to read on the air, now is your time to make sure that I see them and or comment. Yeah. I will say hi to Nicole, who was out there, who just gave me a hello. So I'll give her a quick shout out on screen there. There we go. So Nicole is very sweet. She's been following various broadcasts in various forms since about 2018, I think.
Wow.
So that's how I know her, is from me broadcasting things and her saying, "Hey Phil," in the comments of them.
That's awesome.
That's the extent of our friendship. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm very excited that you chose to join me here today to sort of kick off the festivities of your brand new book. I think it's a wonderful concept. As a reminder to everybody, it is called At the Corner of Fantasy and Maine, Disneyland, Midlife and Churros. The cover of which is a wonderful looking watercolor. I don't know if you painted it yourself, Matt, but I'm going to guess you did not, because you have not mentioned anything about being imagery inclined.
I did not, but it's actually I'm really excited that it is used this. It's by George Scribner, who is a Disney animator and director. He did Oliver and Company.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I guess the Old Mill Press got permission to use some.
Yeah. They reached out to them. They've got the contacts that I don't. So
yeah, this is cool. So this is your first publication with the Old Mill Press, right?
Yeah.
Did they say anything like, or is it one of those deals where you're going to have to wait and see how well the first book performs before they reach out to you and say, we want to do this again?
I don't know. We haven't really talked too much about that. I think it's kind of unless I write another Disney poetry book, I'm not sure how interested they'd be. But I'm just happy they're interested in this one.
I think it's great because again, I really don't think there's anything competing in that category.
The greatest book of Disneyland poetry ever written.
I think it's safe to say that.
Yeah, I think
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Is the next book of Disney poetry from you going to rhyme, or is it more like this?
I mean, it could. It's a possibility.
I think it'd be a better idea is if it didn't rhyme, but the title did.
Ooh,
because then it's deceptive.
That could work.
Then people pick it up and go, "Wait a minute! I thought I knew what I was getting."
Man, but all right, just for you then. Here, I mentioned that villanelle earlier.
Yeah,
I'll read it for you.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Oh, unless there's a question.
No, I just wanted to turn the music down.
Oh, music is fine.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's a nice way to.
No problem.
Set the stage, and now there's a hush that rolled over the crowd.
Okay. Yeah, for a poem called Mr. Toad's Wild Rhyme.
Oh, I love it.
You're just another aging man growing brittle, out of shape, preoccupied with Disneyland. Another day without a plan, another stumble, misstep, mistake for just another aging man, looking for something more grand than emails and meetings and frustration. So you're preoccupied with Disneyland, where yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy are supposed to replace today for just another aging man. And maybe that's survival, necessary sleight of hand, salvation in escape, in preoccupation with Disneyland, on a wild ride that maybe will only complicate your comprehension of obsession's weight when you're just another aging man preoccupied with Disneyland.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you.
It's clear that Disneyland means a lot to you, and I would encourage anyone out there who is a fan of the park, of course the movies as well, but I would say the park specifically. What's so fun about your work is you touch upon the everyday life through the lens of being in a fantasy environment.
Yeah.
I think that's really great.
Yeah, I think Disneyland really lent itself to whatever this project ended up being. It's talking about my parents passing away. It's talking about memory. It's talking about Space Mountain, and it was talking about family. It all kind of intersects there,
which is great. I mean, if it's about things that are tied so closely to those memories for you, obviously that makes for some engaging work.
I think so.
I've wondered this for a while. I don't know if this is the case, but if it's not the case, I strongly suggest that Disney do this. I think they should have a library or a bookstore, or a library and bookstore in the parks themselves. They could theme it around Belle if they wanted to.
Oh, nice. I like it.
And that would be where all the books that have been written about Disney would either be available to purchase or maybe read and not check out. Maybe it's like a limited thing so that you can read it while you're in there or something like that. Yeah. But like there should be a place for all the books that are about Disney.
There should, because they've got that space over by the Magic Shop on Main Street it's got some of the books, but it should.
I have to imagine it would work. I can't see people not going in there.
Yeah. I think you're right. You're onto something. Disney, you could make money.
Disney, you could be making money.
No.
Quick, you're not making money yet.
Exactly. Change your ways.
Oh, man. An idea. I offer that idea up to the ether, and whatever is done with it, be that as it may, I will not take my cut. It's fine. Matt, it's been a really awesome time speaking with you about your book and about all things poetry. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your day.
Hey, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Much obliged. And thanks to everyone at home for watching. If you have any comments after this live broadcast, please feel free to still put those comments in there. And I will make sure that Matt sees them one way or another.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks, guys, for watching. I will definitely have more interviews coming up later this, maybe this month, possibly, but I'm thinking of one later this month, and then maybe even later in the summer. But if you're curious about any of those interviews, please give me a check out and subscribe on YouTube. There's a ton of interviews there and all kinds of other fun things. And then, of course, you can find me on social media. Just reach out and say hello. I will gladly say hello back. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.